We are going to read the next chapter in the BFG, which is called Mixing the Dream. So remember, Sophie just came up with a plan with the BFG to mix a dream to give to the queen so that she knows about the giants who are coming to eat the children. So now they're going to mix up that dream together. Let's see what happens. It was dark now. The night had already began. The BFG, with Sophie sitting on his hand, hurried into the cave to put on those brilliant, blinding lights that seemed to come from nowhere. He placed Sophie on the table. "Stay there, please," he said, "and no chittering. I is needing to listen only to silence when I is mixing up such a naughty, perplexed dream as this." He hurried away from her. He got out an enormous empty glass jar that was the size of a washing machine. He clutched it into his chest and hurried towards the shelves on which stood thousands and thousands of smaller jars containing the captured dreams. "Dreams about giants," he muttered to himself as he searched the labels. "The giants is guzzling human beings. No, not that one. Nor this one. Oh, here's one. And here's another." He grabbed the jars and unscrewed the tops. He tipped the dreams into the enormous jar he was clutching, and as each one went in, Sophie caught a glimpse of the small sea green blob tumbling from one jar into the other. The BFG hurried towards another shelf. "Now," he muttered, "I is wanting dreams about a giggle house of girls, and about a boggle boxes of boys." And he was becoming very tense now. Sophie could almost see the excitement bubbling inside of him as he scurried back and forth among the beloved jars. There must have been 50,000 dreams altogether up there on the shelves, but he seemed to know almost exactly where every one of them was. "Dreams about a little girl," he muddled, "and the dream about me, the BFG. Come on, hurry up, get on with it. Now, where is that wonky world is I keeping those?" And so it went on. In about half an hour, the BFG had found all the dreams he wanted and had tipped them into the one jar. He put the jar on the table. Sophie sat watching him, but said nothing. Inside the big jar, lying on the bottom of it, she could clearly see about 50 of those oval sea green jellyish shapes, all pulsing gently in and out, some lying on top of the others, but each one still a quite separate individual dream. You can see in this illustration, there's the BFG trying to find which dreams he wants, and there is him mixing them up in one big jar all together. "Now he is mixing them," the BFG announced. He went to the cupboard where he kept his bottle of Frobscobble, and from it he took one gigantic egg beater. It was one of those that has a handle which you turn, and down below there were lots of overlapping blades that go on whizzing around. He inserted the bottom end of the contraption into the big jar where the dreams were lying. "Watch," he said. He started turning the handle very fast. Flashes of green and blue exploded inside the jar. The dreams were being whisked into a sea green froth. "The poor things!" Sophie cried. "They is not feeling it," the BFG said as he turned the handle. "Dreams is not like human beings or animals. They has no brain. They is made of zosms." After about a minute, the BFG stopped whisking. The whole bottle was now full to the brim of large bubbles. They were almost exactly like the bubbles we ourselves blow from a soapy water, except that these had even brighter and more beautiful colors shimmering on their surface. "Keep watching," the BFG said. Quite slowly, the topmost bubble rose up through the neck of the jar and floated away. The second one followed, then the third and the fourth. Soon the cave was filled with hundreds of beautifully colored bubbles, all drifting gently through the air. It was a truly wonderful sight. As Sophie watched them, they all started floating towards the cave entrance, which was still open. "They're going out," Sophie whispered. "Of course," the BFG said. "Where to?" "Those is the little tiny dream bits I isn't using," the BFG said. "They is going back to the misty country to join the proper dreams." It's all a bit beyond me, Sophie said. Dreams is full of mystery and magic, the BFG said. Do not try to understand them. Look at the big bottle, and you will now see the dream you is wanting for the queen. Sophie turned and stared into the jar. On the bottom of it, something was thrashing around, wildly bouncing up and down and flinging itself against the wall of the jar. Good heavens, Sophie cried. Is that it? That's it, the BFG said proudly. But it's horrible, Sophie cried. It's jumping about. It wants to get out. That's because it's a Trogglehumper, the BFG said. It's a nightmare. Oh, but I don't want to give the queen a nightmare, Sophie cried. If she is dreaming about giants guzzling up little boys and girls, then what is you expecting it to be? A nightmare? The BFG said. Oh no, Sophie cried. Oh yes, the BFG said. A dream where you are seeing little children being eaten is about the most frightsome troublesome dream you can get. It is a Kixie Bog Thumper. It is a Whoopsie Grab Switcher. It is all of them riddled into one. It is as bad as that dream I blew into the flesh lump eater that afternoon. It is worse. Sophie stared down at the fearful nightmare dream that was still thrashing away in the huge glass jar. It was much larger than the others. It was of the size and shape, shall we say, of a turkey egg. It was jellyish. It had tinges of bright scarlet deep inside. There was something terrible about the way it was throwing itself against the side of the jar. I don't want to give the queen a nightmare, Sophie said. I is thinking, the BFG said, that your queen will be happy to have a nightmare if having a nightmare is going to save lots of human beings from being gobbled up by the fearsome giants. Is I right or is I left? I suppose you're right, Sophie said. It's got to be done. She will soon be getting it over with, the BFG said. Have you put all the other important things into it? Sophie asked. When I is blowing the dream into the queen's bedroom, the BFG said, she will be dreaming every single little thing-a-ling-a-ling you is thinking me to make her dream. About me sitting in the windowsill? That part is very strong. And about a big friendly giant? I is putting a nice long gobbet of me, the BFG said as he spoke. He picked up one of the smaller jars and very quickly tipped the struggling, thrashing Troggle Thumper out of the large jar into the small one. Then he screwed the lid tightly onto the small jar. That's it, he announced. We is now ready. He fetched his suitcase and put the small jar onto it. Why bother to take a great big suitcase when we've got one jar, Sophie said. You could put the jar in your pocket. The BFG looked down at her and smiled. By goggles, he said, taking the jar out of the suitcase. Your head is not quite as full of gribble sludge after all. I can see you was not born last week. Thank you, kind sir, Sophie said, making a little curtsy from the tabletop. Is you ready to leave? The BFG asked. I'm ready, Sophie cried. Her heart was beginning to thump as at the thought of what they were about to do. It really was a wild and crazy thing. Perhaps they would both be thrown into prison. The BFG was putting on his great black cloak. He tucked the jar into the pocket in his cloak. He picked up his long trumpet like dream blower. Then he turned and looked at Sophie, who was still on the tabletop. The dream bottle is in my pocket, he said. Is you going to sit in there with it during the travel? Never, Sophie cried. I refuse to sit next to that beastly thing. Then where are you going to sit? The BFG asked her. Sophie looked him over for a few moments. Then she said, if you would be kind enough to swivel one of your lovely big ears so that it is lying flat like a dish, that would make a very cozy place for me to sit. By gumbo, that is a squawkling good idea, the BFG said. Slowly he swiveled his huge right ear until it was like a giant shell facing the heavens. He lifted Sophie and put up and placed her onto it. The ear itself, which was about the size of a large tea tray, was full of the same channels and crinkles as a human ear. It was extremely comfortable. I hope I don't fall down your ear hole, Sophie said, edging away from the large hole just beside her. Be very careful not to do that, the BFG said. You would be giving me a crocking earache. The nice thing about being there was that she could whisper directly in his ear. You is tickling me a bit, the BFG said. Please don't jiggle about. I'll try not to, Sophie said. Are we ready? Ow! Yelled the BFG. Don't do that! I didn't do anything, Sophie said. You is talking too loud. You is forgetting that I is hearing every little thing-a-ling-a-ling 50 times louder than the usual. And there you is shouting right inside my ear. Oh gosh, Sophie murmured. I forgot that. Your voice is sounding like thunder and trumpets. I'm so sorry, Sophie whispered. Is that better? No, cried the BFG. It sounds as though you is shooting off blunderbuss. Then how can I talk to you? Sophie whispered. Don't, cried the poor BFG. Please don't. Each word is like you is dropping buzz bombs in my ear hole. Sophie tried speaking right under her breath. Is this better? She said. She spoke so softly she couldn't even hear her own voice. That's better, the BFG said. Now I is hearing you very nicely. What is it that you is trying to say to me just now? I was saying, are we ready? We is off, cried the BFG, heading for the cave entrance. We is off to meet Her Majesty the Queen. Outside the cave, he rolled the large round stone into place and set off at a tremendous gallop. All right. That is the end of that chapter, and the next one is called Journey to London.